Welcome to an RPG in a Box Basics video tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about the Voxel Editor and talk about the controls for how to move around the Voxel Editor, but also the various different options that you have available to you in the Voxel Editor. This is going to be a very sort of brief look at everything in the Voxel Editor, so some things may be moved over quite quickly, so refer to other videos on specific topics like animation, for example, where we'll go over some of the functionality in a bit more detail. But for now, this is just going to be a brief overview just so you get an understanding of what the Voxel Editor is all about and how to sort of use the Voxel Editor. So let's start with the controls for the camera, how to sort of look around and sort of orient yourself in the Voxel Editor. So first of all, if you hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse, you can orbit around the model that you're working on. So as I hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse, you can see that in this case, the chest, which is the model that I'm editing, we can orbit around, rotate it around the camera. If we hold down Shift and the middle mouse button and then move the mouse, we can pan the camera from left to right and up and down. If you move the scroll wheel forward and back, it will zoom you in and out of the model. So those are your camera control buttons. So right click and move to orbit and rotate around the model. Shift and middle mouse and move the mouse to pan the camera left, right, up and down, and then scroll wheel forward and back to zoom in and out the model. So let's start going over some of the options that you have available to you in the Voxel Editor, starting with the main tools. So the first tool we have here is the Attach Place Voxels button. You can toggle these by pressing the F keys. So this one, for example, is F1. So when you have this enabled, what you do is you pick your color from the palette down below, and we'll take a look at the palette a bit later on in the video as we move down towards the palette section. But for now, what you do with this button is you pick your color that you want. So let's say green, and then where you place your cursor, you see how as I move the cursor around this sort of gridded volume, each square sort of highlights in a sort of pink, purple square. Wherever you click now, it's going to create a voxel at that point. Okay. Now, also, depending on which mode you're doing, in this case, attaching, placing voxels, it also has a mode of how to place those voxels. By default, you have voxel mode, which means whenever you click, it's just going to place a voxel, or you can hold the mouse button down and draw, and it will follow wherever your mouse goes and create like a trail of voxels. Shortcut key for that is the V key. We could also select box, which is the shortcut for that is the B key. And now if we hold and if we click and hold, now we can draw like a box wherever we draw from. And then the last one is face, and the shortcut for that is the F key. And that basically means wherever you click, it's going to add a set of voxels to match the size of the face that you click on. So for example, if we click here on this chest, it's going to, you see how the brown voxels are in a sort of U shape because these yellow colored voxels are not part of that same color. So it pops out a U shape. Okay. If we clicked on the yellow, it would just pop out the two voxels there, but it does it in the color that you select because we're adding voxels. If we want to just pop out the silver frame, click on the silver frame and it pops out a green frame around the frame here. Likewise here, you click and you can add, and that's what face does. It just does it on the face that you click on. So if we click on the top face, it's going to add voxels to the top there. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's what face does. So you've got face, voxel, which is just single voxels as you click. You've got box, and then you've got face. And face will only work, you see how no voxels are being placed It only works if you've actually got some existing voxels with a face that you can click on. So in this case, here. So moving along, we then have the Paint Voxels button, which is the F2 key for the shortcut for that. So if we press F2, our cursor changes to the Paint tool. And what this is going to do is this is not going to place voxels, it's going to replace the color of the voxels that are already in the model. So again, you would choose the color that you want to paint with. So let's say a sort of teal cyan blue. And then again, you've got the same settings. If we did face, then it's going to paint all of these brown voxels into this color, or the gold, or the silver, but just for the face that you're on. So because we clicked this face, it's not doing the others. So it's not doing everything of that color, it's just painting the face that we click on. But we could also do voxel, and then wherever we click, it's just going to replace the ones we click on. And again, you can click and hold and draw like a pattern with your mouse. Or you can choose box, either by clicking up here and clicking it, or by pressing the B key. And then when you drag, it'll drag a box. Okay, so that's the paint tool. It just replaces by painting over the voxels that are already there. Then we have the delete or erase voxels option. The F3 key is the shortcut for that. So if we press F3, and then same settings, you've got box delete, you've got voxel delete, and you've got face delete. So if we did face delete, for example, and we click on the brown part of this chest, it's going to basically delete the front bit and push it back. If we clicked on the yellow, it's going to delete those and essentially push that bit back in. Same with the frame. Or we can change this to voxel, and then we can just, delete individual voxels as we click around the model, or click and hold and delete random ones as we move the mouse. Or we can use box and then click and hold, and it will delete wherever we drag a box around the model. Next, we have the Replace Color tool. And when we click that, you'll notice that the options change, whereas all of these options have got the same secondary options, which is the shape of adding or coloring or deleting. Replace actually changes that for two different options. So what this is going to do is this is going to replace all of an existing color that's on this model for one that you elect to change it to. And you've got two options here to refine how that's done. You've got contiguous and all frames. So first of all, let me just show you what it does by default. So let's say we wanted to replace all of the brown on this chest with this blue color, or let's say a light purple. Then you'd select your color, and then you just click on the color that you want to replace, and every instance of that color in this model is replaced. So all the brown now has become this purple, light purple color. Okay. Or if we just wanted to change the silver, then now it's a purple framed chest. Okay. All frames, if you have that ticked, when you click to replace for example, the metal frame, if you had other frames, so if this chest had animations, for example, then it will do the same thing on all the frames. So you won't have to keep clicking. So let's say you had 20 frames. You won't have to keep clicking on every single frame. You just have to change it on one frame, and it will apply it to all the other frames if this is ticked. What does contiguous do? Contiguous basically means that any voxels that are directly connected to the one you click on will change. So if we have that ticked and we click on the metal frame, you'll see that it doesn't do all of the frame. It just does the majority. The ones it's done are the ones that are directly touching. So this voxel, for example, is on top of this one. So when this one gets changed, it changes this one. But this one, although it's touching on the edge, it's not actually touching on a surface. So it doesn't get changed. But if we were to undo that, and we were to first of all paint this one silver, or in the same color, if you hold down the Alt key, it's a shortcut to get to the color picker tool, which we'll get to in a minute, but I'm just going to click that So I can select the color and then paint that. Why isn't that the same color? There we go. Put that underneath. And now if I click the replace color tool, leave this on, and now click that. Let's do the light purple again. Now you can see that it's selected all of these, but again, it's still not selected these because none of these are actually touching any of the ones that have been selected. Whereas because that one is now touching directly this one, it got selected, and because these ones are touching this one, they all got selected as well. So basically what this will do is this will only select everything of the same color that has surfaces that are directly touching one another. Now, it's important to note that that includes non-hollowed models. So for example, this chest, if we take a look at it, you can see the brown of this chest. This brown section here, this looks like it should be isolated. So if I was to select the replace color tool and put contiguous on, which should only select things that are directly touching, and I let's say change that to green, and I click here, it should only select this section. But when I click it, it changes everything. So it seems to be not working. Why is it? It should only have changed these. What it should have done, if you think about it, is it should have done that, because these ones are not touching that, and neither are these touching that. So why did the whole thing get changed? The thing you have to remember is that this model, if we delete the top of it for a moment, get rid of these voxels, it's a solid object, okay? So there are actually brown voxels inside the model as well. So these brown voxels here are touching all of these, and all of these are also touching all of those, and all of those are touching all of these. So when you click, even though these ones are not directly connected to these, they actually are, because they're directly connected to these via all the ones in the middle, which is why when you click the replace and contiguous and click here, it selects everything. Next we have the move tool, and that's the F5 key. And with that selected, you can just click and hold and move the chest, in this case, up and down. The movement is locked to the axis where you first move your mouse. So if I click and hold on the chest with the left mouse key, and I start moving the mouse up and down, then I can only move it now up and down. If I move the mouse left and right, it doesn't do anything other than it slightly moves it up and down, but not as much as if I actually move the mouse up and down. But if I try and move the mouse left and right without moving the mouse up and down at all, it doesn't do anything, okay? Whereas if I let go and then click and hold again, but move left to right, it will move left to right. And now if I try and move up and down, I can't. So it locks the axis to where you first move your mouse once you click and hold. That just means that you're not sort of moving it in multiple axes at once. And it also depends on the angle at which you're looking at the model. So for example, if I'm looking at the model face on like this, and I click and hold and move the mouse left to right, it's going sideways. But if I turn the camera so I'm actually looking at it sideways, and then I click and hold and move the mouse left to right, it's now moving the model forward and back. See how it is moving sideways with my mouse, but because we've rotated the model around, technically it's moving that forward and back. Yeah. And if we looked at the model sideways, top down, it's impossible to move this up and down, because if I click and hold and move sideways, it goes left to right. And if I go up and down, it's actually going forward and back. It's impossible to move it up and down when you're looking at it top down. But if I now look at it front ways, and I click and hold and move the mouse up and down, I'm actually going up and down with the model. Yeah. So the movement of the model will depend on the axis in which you start to move the model, but also what angle you're looking at the model from when you initiate that movement. Okay. So that's the move tool. Next we have, and I should also mention that if you hold the control key and click and hold on the model, no matter which mode you're in, it will move the model, okay? So even though I'm in add voxel mode at the moment, if I hold the control key, click and hold on the model, it does the same thing. That means that I can be in the place mode and still move the model whenever I want, just by holding the Control key. So that's a handy shortcut to know, okay? Next, we have the Select tool, which is F6, and that just allows you to drag a selection grid around your model, and then when you hold Control and move, it's just going to move the selected voxels. You can also use the buttons on the right at any point you want to rotate either a selection, or if you don't have anything selected, it will rotate the entire model, or move the model, or move a selection. If I hit Control A, for example, select everything, I can move, or just select the front, I can move it. So that's the Select tool. And when it's selected, you can do Control C, cut, paste, that sort of thing, and put it into a different model. So you could select all of these voxels, copy them, create a blank model, paste the voxels, that sort of thing. So your Control C, Control D, Control V, all of that will work. Then we've got the Pipette tool, which is the same as holding down the Alt key. What this will do is whichever voxel you click on, it will change the selected color to match. So at the moment we've got this gray, but if I click on this yellow, it will now select that color, or the brown, it will select that color. So allow you to repaint or re-add voxels of that color immediately. And again, if you hold down the Alt key, it will bring that up as well. So you don't have to be in this specific mode. You can be in Add Voxel mode. So I can start painting in brown voxels, and then if I want to change to grey, I can hold the Alt key, click on the grey, start adding the grey, hold Alt, click on the yellow, start adding the yellow. Yeah, so it's a nice shortcut to know for using this tool while you're using others. Then we've got the Attachment tool. This will allow you to add models to other models. So for example, what we can do is we can click Create Attach Point. It then has two options, one for adding an attach point and one for editing and selecting an attach point. So let's add one first. So with this selected, you then just click where you want the attach point to be added to the model. So let's just say we'll click here. It asks you to give it an ID. So this is how you can have other models and scripts reference this particular attach point. So let's just call this chest 1. And that creates this holographic white voxel with a chain icon in it. I say holographic, I mean translucent. Translucent white voxel with a chain symbol on it. That's an attach point. You can toggle these things on and off by clicking display attach points. So if you don't want to see those white boxes, you can click that up there. You can also turn off the ground. You can also turn off the grid. Sorry, not the grid, the volume that the model is within, if you just want to see the model voxel itself. And you can also turn off the outlines. And then this button here allows you to display attached objects. So this is an attached point by which we're going to attach an object, and then this can also show or hide the attached objects. So let's carry on talking about attach points. So we just created one. What do they do? So what we need to do now is go to a different model, let's say this key model that I made earlier, and let's put an attach point on here. Let's just say about here. We'll call this key 1. So each of these two models now has an attach point. The key has one and my chest has one. So if we go back to the chest, what we can now do is we can click this button here that says Configure Attached Objects or Effects. And then what this will allow you to do is to set up which objects are attached to this one that we're working on at the moment. So what's the attach point on this object, which we want to attach an object to? In this case, we've only got one, so chest 1. This is the attach point that we made a second ago, this one here. Then what's the model that we want to attach to this attach point? In this case, the key. And then if you have any, what's the attach point on the key model that you want to link to this attach point? In this case, key 1. And then this tick box here allows you to either automatically attach it in-game, which means that when you place this chest, this key will also be attached to it straight away. If you don't have this ticked, then it won't be attached to the object at the start of the game, and then you can later script it so that it gets attached at a later point in your game. We'll leave that unticked for now. We'll click OK, and you can see that what it's done is it's brought the key model into this model. Okay. Now, if we select by clicking the different tool here, if we click the arrow instead, we can now click on the attach point. and it will highlight it in yellow, and it will also produce a gizmo, which is what you call this thing that's got the blue, yellow, and green arrows. And if you click and hold on each of these arrows and move the mouse, you can move the attach point in that direction. So if we click and hold on the green arrow, we can move it in this direction, i.e. forward and back. And you'll see that not only moves the attach point, but it also moves the attached object, in this case the key. So this will allow us to position the attached model in relation to this chest model. We can, move the key to where we want it in relation to the chest model. So we could have the key on the top, or we can have the key at the back. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the key at the front, about there. And then what we can also do is in the properties of the model, we scroll down, and we're going to ignore all of this for now, but I'm just going to quickly show this off. This is how you then edit an attach point. So you select the attach point you want to edit. You can either delete it if you want to, or you can rename it. But here is the options for, first of all, manually moving it. If you want to use the sliders, you can move it in a certain direction as well. The gizmo is more sort of quick and easy to use than the sliders, but you can use them if you want finer control, like entering in a specific number. We can also rotate from here. So if you wanted to rotate the key, you can do that as well. But you can also scale. So let's say we wanted 0.5 and 0.5. You can scale independently on each axis, as you can see. In this case, that kind of squishes the key. But if we do it in all directions, then it just scales down the key. So in this case, we could have something like 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, and then we've got like a little key emblem, which we can have on our chest. We can move the key a bit, maybe angle it a bit, something like that. And then you can hide the attach point box, so you can see what it looks like. So that gives you an idea of what attach points do and essentially how to use them. You attach a model via the attach points, brings them together, and you can scale the attached model independently, move it around. So it just allows you to create more detail on your models by having other models be attached and making up part of the model. And then, as I say, you can hide the attached models as well from the view if you don't want them. Okay, and if we deselect the attach point now, the gizmo will go away. So let's just change this back to add, hide the voxel, and then if we hold down the back tick key, we can preview what it would look like in game. Yeah, so that's attach points. And if you want to delete an attach point, you use the select tool, click on it and press the delete key, and that will delete both the attach point and of course the attached model, because there's no longer an attach point for it to be attached to. So those are the main tools. Then we've got these tools along the underneath. This is a rotate model clockwise. It will rotate the whole model in 90-degree rotations. Then you've got flip, which will flip the model horizontally. Now in this case it's symmetrical, so you don't see anything happen, but if it wasn't symmetrical, let's say we painted something like that and we flipped it horizontally, you can see what it's doing is it's flipping the model horizontally. Then we've got the palette tool. This allows you to replace a particular color. So for example, if we didn't like this yellow, we can click the palette tool, and then where we've got that yellow, we can pick a different color from the existing palette and say, actually, I want it to be a sort of purple color. Click OK, and now any instance of this yellow is now purple. We can change, for example, the gray to be like an orange. Click OK, and then as you can see, you can just sort of change the palette basically. And then this will just delete the model, clear out the current. I'm not sure if it's the whole model or the frame. Let's find out. Let's create some frames. Click this. It just clears out the current frame. Okay. So yeah, it will just delete whatever voxels are in the current frame. It won't delete all frames, but it will clear out the current one. Okay. So those are those. Then we have the mesh type, classic marching cubes. This is probably a bit too advanced to go into in one video as we sort of briefly go over the Voxel Editor, but basically marching cubes, if we quickly save the model as a marching cube model and click the preview key, you can see that what it does is it rounds the voxels. So it's good for creating more curved, rounded shapes if that's what you're looking for. Whereas classic will be your typical square voxel look. So when we preview, it will look like that. So it will actually look in-game like it looks in the Voxel Editor. Then we have textures. Textures is useful for having variations of a model. So for example, we could add a texture by clicking the add icon and let's say red. Then we can use the replace color and replace all the brown with green. And it should have been red really, shouldn't it? Let's click red. So now we've got a variation of the chest which is default and one which is red. And then in game you can specify which texture should be visible. Also when you place something down in the map editor, so if we just quickly go to the map editor, place our chest down, one of the settings for the properties of the chest, if we go into its properties, is the initial texture. And we could say, well, we didn't save the model, but if you saved it, let's just quickly do that. Then in the map editor, this will have, we might need to replace it. Let's just delete it. Oops. Place it again. When you go into the settings, initial texture, you can say red. And then that's what it will look like in the map editor. It will go back to looking normal, but when you're in game, that will be the red chest. So it'll allow you to have variations, and you can either, without having to make lots of different models, you can have, a red chest, a blue chest, and they're just textures within the same model. And then when you place the model in the map editor, you can select it, go down to the textures setting and set the texture you want, and it will show you while it's selected what it's going to look like in game. But as soon as you click off, it will go back to being the standard color, but in game that will be a red chest. Or you can even script it, so you can have the chest start out brown, and then for example, let's say you've got trees that have autumn and winter and spring, that kind of thing, different colors for the different seasons. Then you can make it so that over time your game will change the color of the tree as the time passes. So you can also change textures via scripts as well. Going back to the tools then, so that's textures. Groups, you can select a set of voxels, so let's say the frame for example. And then if you hit the G key, and then give it a name, let's say frame. Now we've created a group in this model called frame. You can see it here. You can reselect the voxels, and basically it allows you to just save different parts of your model into different groups to make reselecting things a lot quicker. So for example, if I just want to quickly move this section of the model, I can click here and then I can move that model. I can deselect. Oh, actually I need to move the group a bit more to the right, so I can select it again, move it back more to the right, etc, etc, etc. Right. One thing that's important to note is when you have live voxels, and what I mean by live voxels is what are ones that you've placed in the model, okay, and ones that are not either attached via the attach point or ones that have been copied and pasted. If you move or rotate the model, it will affect the other voxels. So for example, if I select this frame, again, like I did before, these are all live voxels, i.e. they are active in the model, okay? If I now move these voxels to the left, notice how it actually wipes away the other voxels on the chest, okay? Which we don't want. Bring that all back, because it got rid of the gold, it got rid of these as well, because these voxels are sort of wiping them away as it moves in that direction. I can't show you both the side at the same time, but you can see as I move it that way, it's sort of wiping away all the voxels it's moving through, okay? Whereas if you were to copy the frame, so let's just select the frame again, and Control C, Control V. So now what we're moving is non live voxels. Okay, so that means I can move these voxels into the chest and it's not wiping anything. I can move them up, down, I can rotate, and the chest itself not being affected at all. That's because these, the ones that are selected, the voxels that I'm actually manipulating, are not live. They're not in the model yet. They look like they are, but they're not. They're not in the model until you finally click accept. So let's say we're happy with the placement there. So we click accept. Now they're live voxels. Okay, so now if I select these, and then start moving them or rotating them, now it's going to have a detrimental effect on the model. Okay, let's just go back for a minute. Let's move them in. So you can see it's starting to wipe parts of the model away, because now it's live voxels interacting with other live voxels, which in effect deletes the models it touches, the voxels it touches. So just bear that in mind, that if you're trying to edit your model and you're experiencing voxels being deleted, it's because you're manipulating live voxels. Whereas if you don't want to wipe the voxels away, then copy and paste first and then don't click accept. So if I copy these, for example, copy, paste, just don't click accept until you're happy with where these need to go. As soon as I click accept, they now become live voxels. Okay. Then we have transparent colors. This allows you to select a color. It will use your active color. So in this case, red, which we don't have any. So let's say brown. So I'll click the pipette. Tool. Click the brown. And then if I click add, it will add brown as a transparent color. And I can set how transparent it is by using this slider. So if I move that all the way down to about there, save the model, and we preview, we should see the brown is now, have a look. Why is that not applying the transparency? It might be because I'm using textures. Let's delete the texture for a moment. Let's try that. Yeah, there we go. So it's important to note that textures and transparency don't mix. So you can't, if you've got textures in your model, you can't have transparency. Okay, but you can see what's happening now. I've put the transparency almost to the bottom now. So when you preview the model, the brown is almost not even visible, but we can bring it back a bit. So let's save the model again, preview. And you can see just about it's like brown glass, basically. So this is how you make glass. Now, let's take a talk at this point. Let's talk about water, because this is something where people get stuck early on with the Voxel Editor, and they want to make things like water or windows and things. So let's make a new tile, and we'll call it water. And we'll make it passable. And we'll just quickly paint in some blue. It doesn't matter. Box mode. So there's our water. And then we'll go to transparency. We'll add that color as transparent. We'll slide the slider down. We'll click save. Just quickly preview it. Okay, so there's our water. Okay. Or this could be glass, for example. It could be a window. Let's make it even more transparent. Let's take this as far further to the left. Click preview. Okay. So now if we go to the map editor and we place our water, let's just replace this section here. You can see that if we turn the grid off and the lines off, you can see that the water is not seamless. And likewise, if this was a window, you can see the window is not seamless. You can see that there's these faint lines that chop the water up in this case. Now, what's going on there? That's because we've made the model transparent and therefore it's seeing all of the edges that make up the voxel. So in order to fix that, what you want to do is in the voxel model is when you're using transparency, you want to click this tick box here that says remove surface edges along grid boundaries. What that's going to do is that's going to remove all of these faces, all of these faces, all of these faces, and all of these faces, as well as all of these. Anything that's touching this grid boundary, this volume, is going to get removed. So because these edges here are touching this face, they're going to get deleted. Likewise, all the others as well. So what you'll end up with when we save this model and we preview it is we actually end up with a super thin, flat, almost plane. Okay, it's turned what is a voxel cube into a plane. And now when you preview that in the map editor, it's now a seamless body of water, or if it was a window, a seamless pane of glass. So if you wanted to make a big window now, you can just drag it out like that and it will have no seams in it whatsoever. Okay, so that's how you make water / glass in the Voxel editor using transparency. Okay, going back to the Voxel editor, so that's transparency. We'll delete transparency. Emissive color is for glowing colors, so colors that have like a glow, so it could be a lamp, for example. So if we go to our chest, we could make it so that the gold on this padlock is glowing. So what you would do is you would select, so let's get rid of the transparency, you would select the color that you want to have emissive, and just like transparency, you click add and it will add that color as an emissive color. And then when you save and preview, you'll see that it glows. Now what you'll notice is that some colors, it might look brighter in color than you want. So that looks more almost white. I mean, it's still got a bit of yellow in it, but it's more white than it should be gold. So in order to bring the color back, what you want to do is change the shade of your color. So for example, what we can do is we can go to replace color and we can click this and we can make it just a shade darker. And then when we click, obviously the it looks darker on the model, and then when we add it as an emissive color instead, preview it, when the glow comes in, it sort of brightens it up a bit more. So just be mindful that if you're using emissive colors, you're going to want darker colors. It's going to look darker in the model because you need to obviously remember it's going to brighten up as part of the emissive. Whereas if it's already bright in color, so for example, if we go back and we made this like a bright yellow, so it looks really, in fact, let's try and get it as bright as we can. We get even brighter. Something like that, maybe. So imagine you've got something really bright like that, and we save it. Obviously, we need to set that as the emissive color. Then that'll work. In that case, it's actually worked. Some colors, your mileage will vary. Okay, it's one of those things where sometimes some colors will just look white. I'm going to see if I can get an example. Let's try this pale green. And then we'll delete the emissive, add that shade as emissive, save it, preview. Yeah, it's white, okay? And that's because it was already a bright shade, pale shade to begin with, and then it's brightening it up with the emission, and that just makes it white. So if your color that you're trying to use is white, it's because the color is just too pale to begin with. Whereas if we went for this darker shade and we deleted the emission and reset it to that shade, save it and preview, now it's still paler than it should be, but you can see it's brought some of that color back. So you can see what it's doing. It's really brightening the color that you're trying to use. So you have to offset the brightness in the Voxel editor for what you want as the end result in your model. That makes sense. So that's emission. Then we have the palette. So this is the color palette, and it has some pre-built ones. So you can select the ones you want here, and it will change the available colors that you can use. or you can even create your own. So if you want to create your own, you just click the add button here, new palette, give it a name, mine. And then what you do is you select the box that you want to choose a color for, right click this box, choose the color that you want, and then you click the middle mouse button and it will save, or is it right mouse button? Right, okay, yeah. So if you right click on a grid, so in this case, this square here, and then you choose a color and then close it, it will set it to that color. So if we click this one, right click, choose a red, click off, it saves that color. Okay, so that's how you build out your palettes. Okay, and then you can set your palette as active or edit the name, save it out, export it, that sort of thing, or delete it. Okay, so that's how you set up your own palettes. Obviously, you can import palettes as well if you've downloaded some. So those are the main primary tools of the Voxel Editor. So the last few things I want to talk about before we end this video, because there's obviously far more to the Voxel Editor than what I've shown in this video, but I just wanted to give you an introductory look at the keyboard shortcuts as well as the main tools. Okay, but let's quickly talk about the animation shortcuts for a moment, the frame shortcuts. So if you want to add a frame, you can obviously click the add frame button down here, or you can click Control N and that will create a new frame. So every time I press Control N, it will create a new frame. There is no shortcut for the delete frame, so you just have to click this button down here, but that will delete frames. Control D will duplicate the frame. So if I press Control D, it's created a duplicate of this frame into frame 2. If you hold down the Control key and the left and right arrows, it will move you forward and back through frames. So for example, if we load up the player character model and I go through the frames, you can see that holding the Control key and the arrow keys, I can go through the frames, go through all the different animations. If I hold down the Control key and the up arrow, it will go to the first frame of the whole lot. If I hold Control and the down arrow, it will go to the last frame. So frame 48, for example. So Control up will go to frame 1. Control down will go to frame 48. Okay? And Control left and right will go back and forth between the frames. Okay? The other thing that you can do with the keyframe stuff is if you want to shift frames. So for example, let's go back to frame 1. And let's say we duplicate this frame, so Control D. But we want this frame that we've duplicated is currently at frame 2. We want that to be at the very end. We want it to be 49 rather than frame 2. So you can either click these buttons here, or you can hold the Shift key and the arrows, and that will, in this case, move the frame all the way to frame 49. Or Shift and the left arrow will move it forwards. So Shift and right will move it to the back. Shift and left will move it forwards. Okay? So there's your animation timeline shortcut keys. Okay, so Control left and right to move through the frames, Control up to go to the first frame, Control down to go to the last frame, Shift and left to move the frame forward and back, Control N for a new frame that's blank, Control D to duplicate the current frame. Okay, so that is the Voxel Editor. I know it's been quite a long video, but I just wanted to sort of go over the Voxel Editor as a sort of introductory video, what all the options are, just so that you understand, if this is your first look at the Voxel Editor, what all the options are, how you can use them, what they're for, what the shortcut keys are so that you can start sort of moving around the interface quite quickly. And obviously for specific things like attach points and animations, we'll cover those in their own video. But hopefully this has given you enough of an introductory look at the Voxel Editor to get you started. So with that said, that'll bring this video to an end. Stay tuned for the next video.